Welcome to the Swamp, a beloved MMO from days past, and one of my favorite games ever, Runescape, now has its own survival game set within the same universe. Word of it spread years ago with little to no information until the day it came out into early access, which was about a couple of weeks ago as of writing this. Now, this was one of my more anticipated games, so let's see how well it does. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that would fit into most survival games, based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. RuneScape Dragonwilds is a survival open-world RPG set within the same universe as the MMO RuneScape 3 and OSRS. Familiar characters like Doric, Zanik, and Vanaka all join you in discovering this new landmass that is ruled by dragons. It is your job to survive, set up a base of operations, and slay the dragons within. For an Unreal game, it doesn't require a super powerful computer, an average or middle-of-the-road one should be fine and able to run this without issue. It is funny how the default character is pretty much the same default noob skin with the same green clothes as the MMOs both have. Of course, you can change your character as you wish, so I made my same OC character that I always do, and the options themselves have a good amount of choice, though I think there could be more options available to the player, so for now, I'm gonna rate this a 4 out of 5. The game starts off with an animatic of how you and the others get there, with a brief that dragons rule these lands. Once you are in-game, you can optionally choose to do the tutorial or to skip it. By doing the tutorial, you are taught the fundamentals of the game from each of the main characters, training you with what they specialize in, Doric teaching you crafting, Vanaka teaching you combat, and Zanik teaching you magic. The old wise man is more of a mentor and a median for the main storyline, while the other three will each offer their own side quests later on to complete in the world. For now, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. The intro certainly helps teach you the game and inform you of why you are there with a decent amount of efficiency. The exploration is very important to this game. Now, real quick, I want to say that I normally have a pet peeve when people relate this game to a different game that plays completely different. The example here is going to be Valheim. I don't really like when people say this game is basically Valheim or a Valheim clone, as there is almost nothing about this game that is similar other than maybe one aspect, which is what I'm getting to. In order to progress, you need to unlock the crafting recipes, which you can only learn by gathering new materials or building each of the crafting tables. So the moral is, build everything that you can, every station, gather everything at least once to see what you can build next, as that is the only way to unlock new items. Now, why I'm saying that here instead of the designated crafting section, well, that is because it ties into the exploration. There are several available zones from this early access version of the game, each zone having unique resources that will need to be revisited often for the various items like metal, herbs, and some animal products. The zones themselves are leveled and will have their own unique skill gap and challenges, from the various swamps with poisonous air and water which will slow your movement, to stormy highlands that has lightning that strikes down at you often. You might have to start off going in quickly, grabbing what you can, and leaving swiftly until you have enough to upgrade your gear and comfortably venture back out. A tip for this game is to have as many small shelters as possible, with beds and teleportation devices. You can fast travel with the teleporters, which use up law runes as a resource. The amount of runes needed is dependent on the weight that you are carrying. The more in your inventory, the more runes you will need to spend. But that also means that if you have one near an area where you die, you can simply go back and only use one runestone, as you will drop your inventory on death, which basically means your weight is 0. The exploration can also be dangerous, as when you explore out, there is a chance that a group of enemies can hunt you. A group of goblins or beastmen, depending on where you are, will charge at you. Not only that, but the dragons that are in the map, especially the first one that's the only one available right now, will eventually carpet bomb you on occasion. Most of the time the dragon will simply just fly over and roar, but sometimes they will actually go down and attack you. With this first dragon, he is a green poisonous one that will put down AoE clouds to give off poison damage, which hurts a lot. The only downside is that the map is about medium size for now. There are plans to expand it out obviously, but what little we do have, there are large chunks of the map that felt a bit empty. This can all be filled in later with new quests, new resources, but something to note for right now is that the Bramblemead area feels right. There are a couple of goblin camps and forts and hidden areas to use your skills to unlock, as well as dungeons to discover, but the emptiness is more or less targeted to the later areas like the Highlands. I'm gonna give the exploration a 4 out of 5. I do like that all of the biomes are unique, but they need to be filled in a bit more, primarily the biomes beyond the swamp. The survival itself does have a food and water bar, as well as a sleep bar. I seem to have a problem with these systems, not so much how often you have to eat, but the cooking in general. Cooked berries seem to give the exact same amount of food gain as a dish, so I wouldn't even bother anymore grinding up stuff to make dishes if you're gonna look to sate your hunger. As for water, you have to loot dirty water from pretty much any body of water you can find, and then you have to boil it, but when you do, it takes 2 dirty water to make 1. This is a common theme in this game. We'll talk about more of that in the next section. For some of the crafting, it is a 1-to-1, but it's almost always a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1. It makes it feel pretty bad when you're constantly gathering tons of food and water for it to be gone in a few in-game days, or even minutes. The sleep system isn't too bad, especially if you sleep through the night often, as you will get tired and your stamina will go down. If this happens during the day, you can rest, but it takes longer to recover your stamina, as you can't actually sleep. You just have to lay in the bed with an increased regen rate. Some of the skills like magic and ranged are not present. That doesn't mean you can't use them, it just means you can't level them, and in some cases you won't be able to get really much benefit from it. But with every other skill, the higher level, the less stamina needed, or damage will be increased, something like that. As well as unlocking new spells relevant to that skill. You can access your spells from a radial menu that can be edited with different spells as you learn more later on. Leveling up in this game is different. Instead of combat skills, your overall level is determined by your armor rating. So for the survival section, I'm gonna rate this a 4 out of 5. I like the skilling system and the progression with the spells, but I think the hunger and the thirst system either need tuning or the cooking needs tuning. Speaking of crafting, let's start with the building. Building your base is fairly easy. You can optionally have a blueprint mode so you can plan out ahead of time and fill in the resources as you obtain them, or you can just place them outright. You can make round or square buildings, though I did notice that one of the types of roof pieces was missing from the list, so I wasn't really able to put a proper roof on my tower. It's just gonna have to be a flat roof for right now. While building, it is straightforward and simple enough. I do have to be very aggressive in pointing out that the base defense system is trash. Even if you upgrade it to the tier 2 building pieces, goblins, which are the weakest enemies, can still two-shot the building pieces easily, and there is currently no base defense items, protection walls, palisades, even magical wards to help protect from being raided. That's not all. On top of the warbands raiding your base, you still have the hunting system, which can happen as well while you are home, and they will damage your house. You also have the dragon that strafes. Now, it won't damage your home, but it still blasts through the walls and through the roof and can hit you directly. Though I think that is going to be one of the first updates that they make to the game to fix that bug. The worst thing about all of this is that right now you cannot pause the game in single player mode. So if you need to go to the bathroom, well, you're safer just turning off the game or going to the main menu, because if you come back, your whole base could be decimated, or you could just be dead from a lack of food or water because it continuously goes down even while you are AFK. While they have fixed the dragon attacks since I played this game for this review, the base defense is still really bad and it really needs to be overhauled or have a defense system added to the building. Now, the crafting, as I said before, you unlock new recipes by finding items out in the world. By finding and building new workbenches, you can progress your character further. In general, I like the crafting system. Most of the items are instantly crafted, while others need time to be made, but is fairly quick about it. The only downside to this section is what I mentioned before about the ratio of crafting items, especially ore. I'm spending tons of time to gather ore, only for it to be reduced by half with the 2-to-1 crafting ratio, and each metal node only gives you like a handful each. You need a lot of ore to make things besides just armor, so I would have rather it be a 1-to-1 ratio. Another thing that I like and dislike is the rune crafting. Making your own runes is a good thing, and it allows you to make runes that you can use for various spells that maybe you don't just get enough of when you're looting them off of enemies. However, it's tuned way too high. I nearly maxed out my rune crafting quickly in only a few minutes after harvesting a few areas of the runestones. I went from having maybe 20 law runes at a time to having hundreds. Like, I could have thousands if I wanted to, if not for spreading it among all the different rune types, but I still had a surplus of each. Now, there is no farming just yet, but I could see it being added sometime in the future, especially because it's a staple of the survival game genre, and it's also a skill in Runescape. So for now, I'm going to skip the farming, but overall, I'm going to give this whole section a 2 out of 5 for the terrible base defense system, the crafting ratios feeling a bit bad for the amount you get, and a few other things. But yeah, let's move on to the next section. The PvE really is not a strong point of this game. While it's not the worst thing I've seen, the responsiveness is a bit off. For an example, if I'm fighting something and clearly see an attack coming, the shield up response time might be too slow to actually block the attack. I would have to have my shield up prior to the attack for it to do anything. Dodging seems to be alright, as I didn't have too many issues with it, other than stamina usage. The melee works fine, magic can be overpowered, but also feels unfinished. Well, that's because it is, but it'll be updated relatively soon. So I can't really blame the magic system too much. Same thing with ranged. But I would like to say that the biggest pain in the ass is both the death runs as well as fighting multiple enemies at a time. When you are hit, your character is locked in animation of, them getting hit for a solid second, which gives time for the other enemies to come in and hit you, putting you right back into that animation. So if you're fighting 3 or more enemies at a time, they can easily get you into a stun lock, rendering you helpless unless you can get out of it and try to pick them off one at a time. And the death runs, I will tell you, I have never raged so hard at any other game, because every time I died and tried to run back to get my stuff, something always happened, and I either got close or had just grabbed my stuff, and either new enemies had spawned and would two-shot me, or a dragon strafe, or I'd be hunted, or wolves that can outrun you. There was a time where I was trying to set up an outpost in an area and I kept dying over and over. I had to run back and get my stuff only to die again. This happened consistently for hours. I am shitting you not. Hours, until I finally gave up. I shut the game off and tried again later. It's worse in later zones as the mob density is thicker, and it's nearly impossible to not have any of those enemies come and just destroy you. Now, some positive things, because I just went on a little rant there. There are dungeons you can complete. My only issue with them is that they are all aesthetically the same, which if you've watched me a while, you would know I don't really like when all the dungeons look the exact same. Even the enemies are the exact same. But besides them using the same ancient ruins and guardians, I can say that I can forgive it, as each dungeon layout is different, and sometimes you can find non-linear sections that require a small and generally easy puzzle to progress, with boss battles at the end for rewards. There are mini-bosses out in the world like the Guaro King or the Abyssal Demons and others like that, and of course you have the major boss Velgar, the Green Dragon. I will say that I was a bit disappointed with Velgar, as I had a harder time fighting the Abyssal Demon or just enemies out in the world, and it's not really from the damage output. Velgar's attacks were mild and boring, easily avoided and barely did any damage. I took him out on my first try, and he's only the first dragon, so hopefully the dragons that are supposed to come afterward as they progress the game will, be better. And also, supposedly, they're going to be adding lesser dragons to fight out into the world later on as well. So, again, this can all change later. Who knows? Maybe Velgar is supposed to be easy, as he's just the first major boss, with later ones being harder. But it still doesn't change the fact that other enemies prior to fighting him were scaled to be more difficult. So, regardless, I'm going to rate this a 3 out of 5, primarily for the shield responsiveness time and getting that stun lock put on you, as well as the death runs. The story delivery through questing as well as environmental storytelling is quite good. You can find books out across the land which fill in the blanks of the background lore, and the quests themselves are actually really good. I wish there were more right now, but there's only a handful which are generally named after OSRS quests, such as the Restless Ghost and Goblin Diplomacy, as well as the main story quest being called Dragon Slayer. I've completed every single quest that's available right now in the early access, and I love that you could find these quests either by finding the person out in the world or by finding the items associated with them, which are either dropped by enemies or found in certain locations, like the Ghost Speak amulet in the well. It rewards players for exploration. With that, the quests only show you where the quest person is, and sometimes it might have an area of where to do the quest, but it never exactly tells you where to go. I find that great, you know what I mean? The rewards, I could say, could be a bit better, but I do love the Bandos cape that I got from the Goblin quest. My only negative for the quest is the Restless Ghost quest. Each ghost gives a clue to find the other ones, yet I don't feel that their descriptions are that great. It took me a bit longer to do that quest, but anyway, I'm going to rate this section a 4.5 out of 5. I am going to skip the story written section that I normally do because we've only gotten to one dragon and haven't gotten to see the rest of the main story yet. So I'm going to hold off on rating that section until it is finished. As for updates of this game, it's still a little bit too early to really tell how well it's going to be updated, or how often rather. The devs have openly stated that they plan for this game to be in early access for about a year before the final release. They also have a roadmap that is published to the public, so you can see what is coming in the future. A lot of what is planned looks great to have added, though I will say that this game has been out for a month or so now. I took a bit longer to make this review because, for one, I was doing the Schedule 1 review, and two, I just needed to take a break from, just making videos in general, which is why this video is a little bit late. But in that meantime, they've only really done one major, well, not even a major release, it's one hotfix. And besides that, it seems that the devs in the first week or two of the game launching went AWOL to take a break themselves. Yet that is one of the most crucial times that they needed to be there, because there's tons of people complaining about various tunings, like, the dragon attacks and the base defenses. And since the launch, fixing those few things is like the only hotfix we've gotten. So yeah, this has a high probability that things will come. However, it might also be that they're gonna be taking their sweet time to do it. So right now it's up in the air. Normally I wouldn't rate this at all, but I'm just gonna give it a solid 3 out of 5. I'm not gonna go more or less than that because I want to see what happens in the future. Good news, I hardly had any bugs or issues, and no crashes. Or really anything minus the occasional frame drop once in a while. Really, just to fill up this section, I would like to rant about how I dislike that there's no pause in single player, and there's no AFK protection. And by that, what I mean is, when you're AFK, your food and water bars still go down at the same rate while you're standing still than if you were running around. Conan Exiles is one of the few games that has an AFK protection system, so your statuses, like food and water obviously, will be reduced to like a percentage point while you're standing still, rather than when you're moving around and it goes down at normal speed. And of course you can adjust this on private servers. If they don't want to add a pause button for whatever reason, then they should have the AFK protection, which allows you also to not be hunted while AFK, because, come on, I go AFK to take a piss, I come back and I'm either dead from starvation, or I'm being hunted, or my base is being attacked, which just ends up going to shit. So, yeah, they either need to add a pause menu, or to have that AFK protection system like I just mentioned, so you're not risking being dead when you have to go take a piss, or go get something to eat, or your dog is barking. You get the idea. Anyway, that's just my little rant, again, to fill up this section, but for the lag and bug section, I feel confident of giving it a 4.5 out of 5. I just dropped it a tiny bit because of the occasional frame drops that I get, but the rest of it is fairly solid. My overall score for RuneScape Dragonwilds is going to be a 3.8 out of 5. For the first impression, this game is fairly solid and has a good going for it, though it still has a long way to go before it's ready for a release. The building and defense systems, some of the combat, and the ratios of the crafting versus gathering are really the biggest issues here, but the questing system is definitely a plus, and I can't wait to see more of what they add to fill out the world later on. And that is the end of this video. If you liked my review, please subscribe to this channel, as I will be making more in-depth reviews of open-world sandbox survival RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about from the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for what game to do next, please comment below and like this video. Florida Gator Man out.